Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents KYLE SERAPHIN?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in KYLE SERAPHIN. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called KYLE SERAPHIN brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the KYLE SERAPHIN Show.
KYLE SERAPHIN, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent KYLE SERAPHIN.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the KYLE SERAPHIN Show. Today is Friday. It is Friendly Friday. We've got the real Steve Friend with us, and he'll be joining us in just one moment. It's March the 8th. That means that yesterday was the State of the Union, and it was as bad as we thought it was going to be. Any of you who decided to join us for our live stream, we did a couple things last night that we have not done. Let me add a little bit of light to this situation. What do you say? So we did a couple things. We sent Mark Naughton, who you can follow on Twitter at MarkNaughton9, just the number 9, Naughton. And Mark Naughton went down there because we knew that there was going to be a pro-Palestinian protest that actually shut down the motorcade for the president and delayed his arrival by 25 minutes. At least that's how late he was when it came to actually starting his remarks. So that's kind of interesting. That seems like a delay of an official proceeding. I don't know that any of them went to jail for it. In fact, they actually arrested a Gold Star father instead. So we'll talk about all that stuff. But the State of the Union, it's not great. It wasn't good. It was hard to watch. And for those of you that joined us, I know you were upset and you didn't like it. That was the nice thing about doing the live stream. We were able to get a walking tour of Washington, D.C. We got to see a bunch of protesters. We watched the protests break up. And then we saw an old man screaming. The reaction by the GOP was maybe even worse for me. So we're going to cover all that stuff today. Before we get into it, and before I bring on Steve, let me just start off and we'll do a couple of sponsor reads here. We are really appreciative that these folks are keeping the lights on and keeping the show running. You can go to contingencymedical.com using promo code Kyle if you are also interested in staying well. My wife actually just brought up that she's not feeling fantastic. She's like, hey, maybe I should break into one of those antibiotic packs. We will see. It's an opportunity. Those are my prescriptions. She can't do that. She's got to get around. Guys, contingencymedical.com. You can go put in your medical history. A physician will review it in your state, and you can take the control back away from like pharmaceutical companies and even from a doctor that you have to go into the office. I don't know why, but my buddies keep hitting me up about going into doctors' offices, and doctors seem to think that like they tell you what to do. They work for you. And this actually allows that relationship to be in the way that it's supposed to be. You give your information, they approve what you request, and then you get this whole bin full of different courses of antibiotics, antiemetics, which are for nausea and vomiting, and antidiarrheals. We don't need to discuss what that is, but that's a big thing. And you'll take those with you wherever you go to keep yourself well on your terms. Fantastic stuff. There's a whole book to kind of show you how to use them. And there's a backup plan, a contingency, if you will, for the primary course of antibiotics you could use. And a secondary, you get something like 6 or 7 different courses, 6 or 7 different weeks. If you're sick that much during a year, then you should definitely have one of these things. Contingencymedical.com, promo code Kyle. Let's also just say thanks to the buddies over at Catholic Vote who have a great loop out this morning as usual. They have something about Biden talking about the threat of democracy under threat. We always know that they're talking about the tyranny of the majority. So that's the first read there. Catholic reaction to the State of the Union is very good. He said he would enshrine Roe v. Wade into federal law. I don't know how that's supposed to work after we saw what happened in the Supreme Court, but it is what it is. That's what the man said. I didn't cover that today's show, so you guys can find all that stuff at catholicvote.org/loop, or you can just go to catholicvote.org and sign up for the loop. You'll be happy you did. You'll get an outstanding email. And again, follow them on social media if you are so inclined. They've got some fun stuff coming. They've got a new social media manager that's putting out a lot. It's at Catholic Vote on Twitter and on True Social. With that all said, where's that guy Steve Friend? I feel like I got a Steve Friend. Hey, Steve, what are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. It is like 70 in Florida. I found somebody who you can't tease me about being cold anymore because I was running a tank top and he had on a beanie cap and a scarf and a jacket. So there's somebody who's colder than Steve Friend out there.
It's 70 degrees and he's wearing a scarf and a beat. Is he like doing like a sauna suit routine where he's trying to drop weight?
No, man. He was just walking down the sidewalk, just comfortably, casually. And I ran past him. That was my first thought. I was like, this is how Kyle felt when we were in Houston and I had on a coat and he had shorts.
It's awkward. It's just too much. I just don't need to see that much clothing. It's the summertime, man. It's like after 50 degrees, it's shorts and t-shirts weather for me. It's too much. All right. We got a ton of stuff to get into today. Are you ready? Are you prepared for all this?
Send it cold, man. I did not sit for the State of the Union address because I decided to watch Apollo 13 last night and actually feel good about myself.
How is Apollo 13? Does it hold up?
It does. It's excellent. It's on Netflix for those so inclined. It holds up. It really gives you a nice pull on the heartstrings. You know, this is our finest hour, and Tom Hanks is fantastic.
All right. Real quick question. Did we actually land on the moon?
I think we did. I think that
safe bet.
There's way too many people involved. At least one of them would want to be a whistleblower, right? At least one of them would want to be a suspendable and say that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's the thing about government conspiracies. Like, we know who works in the government, and one, they're not good at secrets, and two, they're not good. Period. The end. People don't do really well with that kind of stuff. You'd have to compartmentalize it so well. Okay, so let's start with the reaction. I'm actually going to work backwards. So, folks, we're going to work backwards with the State of the Union. This is Katie Britt. She was the GOP's choice to respond to the State of the Union. I don't know how they picked her, but we're going to react in a second to her reacting to the State of the Union. Obviously, this was pre-written. They shot it in her kitchen because they want to be relatable to moms. I'm told this is what a 38-year-old suburban mom would react to. I don't have a 38-year-old suburban mom in my house. I have a 42-year-old suburban mom, and her face contorted in pain. So, guys, you might need a barf bag, even for the GOP response. Steve Friend, get ready for your reaction as well. Here we go.
Good evening, America. My name is Katie Britt, and I have the honor of serving the people of the great state of Alabama in the United States Senate. However, that's not the job that matters most. I am a proud wife and mom of 2 school-aged kids. My daughter Bennett and my son Ridgway are why I ran for the Senate. I'm worried about their future and the future of children in every corner of our nation. And that's why I invited you into our home tonight. Like so many families across America, my husband Wesley and I just watched President Biden's State of the Union address from our living room. And what we saw was the performance of a permanent politician who has actually been in office for longer than I've been alive. One thing was quite clear, though. President Biden just doesn't get it. He's out of touch. Under his administration, families are worse off, our communities are less safe, and our country is less secure. I just wish he understood what real families are facing around kitchen tables just like this one. You know, this is where our family has tough conversations. It's where we make hard decisions. It's where we share the good, the bad, and the ugly of our days. It's where we laugh together, and it's where we hold each other's hands and pray for God's guidance.
Okay. Couple things.
My mom is in the chat right now, and my mom said, "Who talks like that?"
Well, you talk like that if somebody's behind the screen pointing, going, "Smile,
right?
Keep smiling, keep smiling," and talk like Nikki Haley. Talk like Nikki Haley.
Show your
that's
teeth,
how we win.
Yeah.
And she's a psychopath. I mean, that's
Nikki Haley or that woman, Katie Britt?
Yes.
Hot takes from Steve Friend. I think he dials it up to 11 before he steps in. Like, I know you went for your run and you just like dial it in to, I'm bringing it fully aggressive. I'm starting Friday off on fire. So, okay. So psychopaths in the thing. Look, my wife cringed when I showed that to her. Cringed. Like her face was contorted in pain.
She should. It's uncomfortable. It's not relatable. This is like Mitt Romney with the hot dog. Those
are his favorite meats, dude.
Established, yes. This is the Republican establishment thing. Like, how can we sound relatable to real Americans? Oh, I know. We'll talk about how we sit around our kitchen table and have really important discussions while smiling continuously. Make sure you vote for us, because they're chuds. They're just subhumans. They're not real people. They're all fake. And the larger issue here is actually my problem with the State of the Union and the response. And there's a cognitive dissonance that's happening. The State of the Union is I don't like it because it's this royal affair, and that's very un-American to me. But it's very masculine, right? It's the leader is going to address the people, but the message is very feminine. It's all emotionally driven, and the response here is the same thing.
That's the disconnect.
This is the view. This is the view.
Yep.
It's uncontrolled, feminine id. And that's not what we expect from a leader, which is, I mean, that's why there's an appeal for Donald Trump. I don't think that Donald Trump can like do lots of manly things, but at least his persona, or the perception that people have, is he's a guy's guy. So there's a gaping hole in our government structure right now, which is why there's an appeal there for people, because we don't have that.
You know, and Biden kind of claims to be the person that can do that, doesn't he? He's like, I'm Joe from Scranton and I drove a truck, but he's full of shit. Like, everything he says is false, and his emotional messages are crap. Look, we got some of his too, so don't worry, we're going to equally dump. That's the best part about this show, is that we're not beholden to anybody politically. Look, that was how it started with Katie Britt, and here's how it's going. This is the way that it's going to be remembered.
Right now, our commander-in-chief is not in command. The free world deserves better than a dithering and diminished leader. America deserves leaders who recognize that secure borders, stable prices, safe streets, and a strong defense are actually the cornerstones of a great nation.
Go.
So points for skill for just crying on demand, as she was doing there, reading talking points that have no connection to her actual emotional state. But she was told, smile, and then at this point, you need to get really angry, express your umbrage and your outrage, and can you give us a tear? Cry on demand. That they're behind the camera telling her to do this.
They invited them into
fake.
We were invited into her home. How dare you, Steve? You know what? Okay, here's the thing. And I responded to this on social media, so some of you guys saw this. That was how you scold a toddler. That was toddler scolding behavior. That is an angry mom. I've seen it a lot. I've seen it at playgrounds. But here's the thing: when you scold a toddler, particularly boy toddlers, they immediately ignore you when you do that thing. They're like, oh, this is the performance where the person is like expressing their outrage in this ridiculous way. And even at like 3 years old, little boys are going like, that's not the message I'm interested in. I'm out. I'm out for whatever you just said. I tuned out. All I heard was, meh, 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 meh. It's Charlie Brown style. They just don't hear it. And that's what I heard her say. She's literally doing a mom routine. And somebody was like, well, that's how you connect to moms. No, I think you just be honest with moms. Moms are really pragmatic people. They deal with some of the most pragmatic things in the world, like poop, regularly. Can we just agree on that?
Moms can call BS too, because they deal with that all the time.
And do.
Kids try to BS. And that's straight BS, what she's putting out there.
Look,
it's not genuine.
It's
not relatable. It's the same thing we say with the FBI, right? Like, just don't be weird. Just be a regular person. You could throw you or me out there and we would just talk about.
We'd be like, here's the problem. I'm pretty sure that Joe Biden.
Problem, guys. Let me break it down for you folks. Throw in some contingency medical references.
The man just did a pile of cocaine like Scarface. He came out here strong. He's faltering. The minute that he got derailed, which, by the way, he got derailed by a couple of different points. Number one, he doesn't know. He tried to stand on his border policy. That's a really bad idea. I don't know who told him that was good, but the speechwriters there were like, yeah, we're going to get this one. Failure. The second thing is he got derailed because a Gold Star father who lost a son at Abbey Gate during that disastrous withdrawal of Afghanistan yelled out Abby Gate, and Biden just like fell off the mountaintop. Like he just couldn't hold on to his grip. And I'll play that for you in a second. One more time, I'm going to play this again just so people understand. The Republicans are no better when they have this response. If you are going to scold us like toddlers while trying to get us to get on your side, you lose. Nobody wants this either. This is really bad. I'm going to play this just a few seconds of her again because I just want to see the fake tears and also because I want the chat to vomit. Here we go.
Right now, our commander-in-chief is not in command.
Yeah, not in command. It's like righteous indignation, except there's nothing righteous about it and there's nothing honest about it. So, okay. So that's the take. Now,
Bad acting.
here is Hakeim Jeffries and his lovely takes. Are you ready for this? Biden showed up, delivered a forceful speech, and smoked the MAGA extremists. My dude. This was his thing. This happened last night at 10 o'clock after it ends. I also contrast that with NBC saying Biden will not be charged in the classified document case. Special counsel cites instances of poor memory. They actually said he was a kindly elderly man with a poor memory. So, Steve, here's my problem. Either he showed up and smoked it. By the way, is that violent rhetoric?
I think it borders on something similar to what our friend Burt Macklin got suspended on Twitter for, and that was saying that he hoped that all the senators got a stroke like Fetterman and then recovered just like Fetterman.
Yeah, that's actually a good wish. Honestly, I'm not mad at that wish.
Right?
Yeah, Fetterman was like, he's like, my brain wasn't working. Then I tarted out for a little bit, and then I came back, and the rebooted Fetterman is pretty reasonable actually. He actually is the guy that Joe Biden represents himself to be, kind of like this average bumbling dude, but not foolish. Like he doesn't have great takes, but he kind of gets it. He knows you can't run on the
kind of
border.
a silver spoon whose entire family was paid for by his family, by his family's wealth, while he had like a $20,000 a year job as a part-time mayor. But his takes now probably make him in the top 10, is I think senators as conservative.
Right, he's probably going to win a heritage score that's going to be better than John Cornyn or something. So the goofy thing about all this stuff is things that struck me. Number one, forceful speech. Really capable. Yeah, he actually did come in pretty hot. Actually, when he came in, we were like, everybody in our chat was like, whoa, the dose is high. I wonder how long this will last. He better get this thing out. I assumed it was going to be 25 minutes long. He was 25 minutes late. I figured he's got 50 minutes worth of gas in the tank. You can tell he started getting derailed like in midway through it. But you're going to talk about smoking the MAGA extremists. Here's my big thing. Aren't these the same people that were crying about Navalny dying from accidental causes or some sort of natural death out as an opposition leader, which maybe the CIA killed him. Who knows what hell happened? We're not going to get any good answers about that. Smoking the MAGA extremists. Like what percentage of this country do you think are quote unquote MAGA extremists, if you had to guess? Like a conservative estimate.
Oh, like a legitimate conservative estimate? Huh? Yeah, I don't know, maybe 10, 15%. That's where I probably would guess, but I have no idea. I mean, look, the label is not what matters. The actual ideology behind the label is not what matters. The label matters. So we talked about this on the AMRAD podcast. There's the connection to Christian nationalism, and they say that that correlates with affinity for Donald Trump, and that makes you a MAGA enthusiast, right? And if you take the numbers that they say were Christian nationalists, that's like 30% of the country. So where are you in there?
And okay, so the definition of MAGA extremist matters, but MAGA extremist is just a smear. That's just the Biden term for people who support Donald Trump. And if you're like pretty favorable to Donald Trump, like I think you and I will go, yeah, Donald Trump is preferable to the alternative. So that doesn't make me a MAGA extremist, but there's a lot of people in our chat. There's probably a pretty good chunk of people in this country. And I think it's more than 15%, by the way. I think it's like 25 to 35%. I think it's the bulk of the Republican base, right?
Oh, there's no question that the bulk of the the guy went 14-1 on Super Tuesday.
Right.
I think the base supports Trump.
Let's take it at that. Let's not say that we're talking about actual extremists in the way that honest people would have that dialogue, because I don't think that's what Hakeim is talking about. I think we're talking about people that political leftists would smear as extremists. And the question is this: what percentage of the opposition in a country do you have to be before you're not an extremist, you're just an opposition party? A la Navalny, who, by the way, got like a tiny fraction of the vote, not even close to a Donald Trump, not even close to, he got less support in his country than Nikki Haley got on Super Tuesday.
He's just a nice foil to have.
Right.
To
well, I mean, he's propped up.
Legitimacy. Yes. I think that Hakeim Jeffries is just, again, he's he's doing the feminine thing, right? He's just going to pure emotion and saying that he smoked the MAGA base. They're just going to try to paint this over and over again because it's a winning message for their base, which is galvanized by utter hatred for the former president. And that's going to be their get out the vote effort because they can't run on any sort of achievements. I mean, people can't deny that they go to the grocery store and they're spending double what they were spending 4 years ago. They can't answer the question in the affirmative. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Which is a problem if you're running for re-election.
One would think. I'm going to encourage folks to go and watch our live stream that we did last night with Mark Naughton. And I'm not going to plug it a whole lot, but there was one moment that was so perfect, and we couldn't have staged it if we wanted to. You had Joe Biden talking about the MAGA extremists and the insurrectionists, and they tried to take over the government, and they tried to knock over January 6th garbage, like just foolishness. And at that moment, I had just downsized Joe Biden to a smaller section, and 3/4 of our screen was the pro-Palestinian uprising Hamas supporters with a huge flag standing in the middle of the streets of Washington, D.C., blocking traffic that had actually slowed down the presidential motorcade. And at that exact moment, you heard a president squealing about something that was fake while we were literally seeing people do something that was analogous to and also interrupted a joint section of Congress and didn't let the president arrive on time. And there was this perfect moment where you couldn't just spell out irony fast enough. It was like I wanted like to have, if I had a button that I could push, we would just go like, you know, Alanis Morissette, that's what it would say. It wouldn't say irony because she's the queen of irony. It's so crazy to hear a man say that while you're literally looking at what's happening just outside of that building. And it's people doing the exact same thing. And they're cheered as folks who are raising their voice. And you know what? I'm okay with them raising their voice. I'm okay with them not even having the permit. DC has unpermitted events all the time. I'm actually okay with all of it because they were nonviolent. When it was time to go and their impact was made, they had like what they achieved their goal. They're like, we're trending on social media. And then they all broke it down and left politely. They took all their shit with them and then went home. I'm for it.
So it was different than the people that, what was it, way back when, 6 weeks ago, who tried to storm the White House.
It was way smaller. It was way more peaceful. Mark Naughton was at both. And he was like, look, 300-400 people in the streets, candlelight-ish visual. They blocked off like 150 square feet, 150 by 150 square in the middle of this like traffic. It's for those people who know Washington, D.C., it was roughly 3rd Street Northwest, and it was the far eastern end of Constitution just before it hits the reflecting pool. So it's like Congress is here. The National Mall runs out across it, going out to the west. And it was like right at the corner here. And then all that area was mostly blocked off anyway, because you can't drive next to the Capitol when they do the State of the Union. They shut it all down. It was fine. And we like seeing righty, stuff. I have a whole riot meter. It goes up to 5. We only went up to 1. It was a British parliamentary debate. That's pretty much how raucous it got. People raising their voices and singing crappy songs. That was the end. There is something very important about allowing that to be the case. We should have discourse. And while he was doing the same thing that I'm going to say it was 90%, it was probably way over 90% of the people on January 6th did the same sort of thing. They showed up, they walked around, they were in that same literally that same exact spot in the same place while Joe Biden's talking about it. You've got them doing the same thing, but just not as many because far fewer people love Hamas and far fewer people love Joe Biden, it turns out, than love Donald Trump in this country. You can't make it up.
I mean, to have that be your electoral strategy, that you just want to talk about this 4-hour incident it's gross. And the human toll, the human cost to that. And when you actually, I'm big on just like, you have to be able to state something in the most extreme way and have it hold water. So to win re-election to whatever position you want, you're willing to let people go to prison for years of their lives, to destroy their families, their finances, everything. The people that you allege to be there serving as your constituents, as Americans, you're willing to put them into a cage so that you can message properly and get reelected to your job, from which you can sit and pontificate and wax poetically about how you love the Constitution. Oh. And when you say it that way, that's pretty gross. I don't have any love lost for anyone who's running on January 6, 2021 to win re-election in 2024.
Here's Biden putting somebody in jail. This is a Gold Star Dad. Let's watch a little take. We're going to actually do State of the Union stuff too.
All Americans deserve the freedom to be safe. And America is safer today than when I took office. The year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history. It was then, through my American Rescue Plan, which every American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in public safety ever. Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do.
He yelled Abbey Gate, folks, because he's the father of a Marine that was killed in the explosion that happened in Afghanistan during that failed withdrawal, and they arrested him on misdemeanor charges. So there's a picture of the boys, mom, and you saw the gentleman, the father, who was just carried off. Like he walked out. He went out on his own power, but that was a misdemeanor. And you can imagine that. Also, you just heard the one time someone said something in a sort of a heckling way, which, by the way, that should really, really hurt what Joe Biden was saying. What is his reaction? He said, "My American Rescue Plan, which all Americans voted against." I know
all Americans.
I know Steve Friend didn't miss that part. Yeah, so he just got completely derailed. He just can't keep track of what's going on. Horrific. And that dad said the thing that, I mean, my parents have a combat memorial in front of their house. Do you know that? Have I ever showed you that picture?
No.
They have they have 13 crosses sitting out in front of their house. Like they own a 2-acre property, and the front driveway of it has like one of those big, U shapes, but it's brush and scrub. So as you walk by, you don't really see the house. You see an American flag with a light on it. You see some rocks that are shielding it. There are 13 wooden crosses that are dug into the ground. And then there's a metal plaque that's probably maybe 18 inches by 20 inches, something like that. It's got the pictures of every single one of these. It's actually like printed into the metal. So you can see a picture, including this young man right here, this Marine whose name was Kareem. I think his name is Nicolo. There's somebody in the neighborhood who actually lost a child, and they didn't know that. But 13 faces, 13 names, their story, and 13 crosses sit in my parents' front yard. Because this impacted a lot of folks that don't otherwise get involved because it was so unnecessary. And then as he's talking about how homicide rates have gone down and all this kind of stuff, you had this man screaming about it. And he was also talking about the insurrectionists, and they had him arrested. Not the Antifa BLM types.
No, because this is the theme. All right. There's a cold civil war happening in the country right now. We need to accept that this is just reality. It's like air. Okay. Our side is saying things like we all want the same thing and we can all just get along, we can compromise, and we just need to follow the Constitution. And the other side is playing demolition derby and is the Borg and says you will be assimilated, resistance is futile, and they will use whatever levers of power to come after you. If they need to call you a MAGA extremist so that they can galvanize the FBI to come after you, they will. They don't care if they have to hurt you. They don't care about the human toll. They're willing to put people in prison to get reelected. They're willing to roll a Gold Star father for speaking out against his president, which is his First Amendment right. And you can argue about appropriateness of it at the State of the Union. Look, I'm all for it. I mean, I think when we broke the seal on that one, I forget the congressman's name who said, like, you lie to Obama. And that was the biggest thing that ever happened. But I'm here for it. Like, these guys work for us. We should just be heckling them nonstop, and they need to be able to stand up to it. And these guys can't even take a Twitter critique of themselves. That's how thin-skinned these politicians are. That's how they feel across both parties, that they don't answer to you. They just do what they want because they are the most high amongst us, selected. And that's not what I think most Americans have an expectation of from their elected officials.
Couldn't agree more. I'm gonna break to a couple of sponsors, and then we're gonna do more takes, including getting derailed despite the mountain of cocaine or whatever sort of Adderall injections they were doing, whatever the alchemist came up with. Let's break over. Let me say thanks to my friends over at Patriot Coolers. Folks, you can go to patriotcoolers.com if you have not done so. If you are interested in a high quality company from Texas, America, that makes really good looking products that do a great job, Patriot Coolers is your choice. It says Patriot right on there. There's 50 stars. There's 13 stripes. It's a great looking set of coolers. They make tumblers. They've got backpacks. I have all of them. I have an entire pantry full of useful tools from Patriot Coolers, and I've been using them since I was working for the FBI. So I didn't just find them. They found me. They were like, hey, we know you bought some of our stuff. My brother has an association with one of their sister companies, and you guys can go to patriotcoolers.com, use my promo code, which is Kyle, KYLE. It'll save you 10%. You could get 10% off, by the way, for being a vet. They don't offer a particularly special thing other than you're listening to my show. If you guys want to give me credit for it, we do appreciate that. We want to drive traffic to a good company that actually loves us. Look, they love us just based, you can see just on the box. Look how awesome this thing is, by the way. You won't see this on a Yeti. You won't see this on any of the others, the Stanleys. I keep the boxes because I like how much they look. That's literally true. I'm also a guy who keeps boxes. But patriotcoolers.com, again, patriotcoolers.com, promo code Kyle, KYLE. And while we're on the topic of Patriots and a cold civil war, check out our food prep company. This is 4patriots.com. Again, 4patriots.com/Kyle will take you to our landing page. You have two options in life, I always believe. My buddy Charlie Ray likes to say it. You can prepare or you can repair. That's why I put it on the screen here. If you want to be in the prepare camp, it's cheaper. It's a lot more peace of mind. You don't have to walk into the world wondering, oh my God, what's going to happen next? Are they coming to smoke the MAGA extremists? And am I one of them? You might want to hold up with a little bit of 4patriots.com/Kyle calories. That means you can go and get yourself some emergency food, whether it be 72 hours, whether it be a month, whether it be 6 months or a year. They have all those things. These are fire and forget options. You can literally buy a series of their ready-made meals that are just add water and heat, and then you don't have to freak out about it. They last for up to 25 years. Packed in the U.S., good stuff, good people. 4patriots.com/Kyle. There's no promo code on that. Just go to that landing page and you'll be able to get hooked up on it. And let's keep going. Let the hits keep rolling right here. My buddy Steve Friend, I'm going to play you a little more. This is what happened when he tried to bring up his immigration policy. And again, can't handle the heckling. You want to talk about real crimes. How about the story of Lake and Riley, which we've covered here? We discussed the fact that the FBI was told they probably couldn't prosecute for an AFO, an assault on a federal officer. Meanwhile, he can't even get the poor girl's name right, and decided to demonstrate that in front of everybody. Every American voted against his American infrastructure plan, and Lincoln Riley is the person that he's concerned against. I don't know who the Lincoln Riley is. Maybe that's her brother. Pretty awful. Here we go.
Opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win, he viewed it as would be a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him, it's not about me. I'd be a winner, not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
Just go.
Okay. All right. So Lincoln Riley is a college football coach. So just we'll put that out there. So I guess Joe, we know what he's doing on Saturdays. He's tuning in the big games, right? He likes USC football, apparently. I was thrown off originally when he said, like, I would win. I don't know what that was talking about.
Then he said, no, I don't.
And yeah, and it's a bold move, Cotton, to talk about your border policy.
And not know the name of the poor girl. And by the way, her parents decided not to show up. They were invited to the State of the Union, and they said that they couldn't. I mean, they're still dealing with the grief of it. You can totally understand that.
Well, yes.
What is he holding up there? Is that like, it looked like he was holding up like an Apple AirTag? Like, what was he holding up in the circle? What was that thing?
I don't know.
I didn't know last night. I don't know now. I've seen that clip 11 times. I have no idea what he's holding. He reaches down and he's like, I got this Apple AirTag. Like,
do you think it was like
you're supposed to put this in your wallet?
I've fallen and I can't get up button.
Yeah, it was just maybe that's it. Maybe it was his life alert. Maybe it was his life alert that he had taken off as a necklace, and he picks. He's holding it. I don't know what he's saying. He's like, I would win anyway, but not really. But I don't know. And then she's yelling MTG. So that's what you heard in the background. If you're not watching the video, MTG, who's wearing a MAGA hat, by the way, which is a bold move and potentially crossing some line of, I don't know, ethics in the House. But she yells, say her name, say the name Lincoln Riley or Laken Riley. And then he says Lincoln. I can't get it out of my head. I don't know why he says it's Lincoln Riley. He's totally derailed. That's when we started seeing that if he's not on the tracks, narrow on the teleprompter, failure.
As soon as he's off prompter, he's in trouble.
Big time.
He just doesn't have the intellectual bandwidth at this point. I will say this, that good on Laken Riley's parents for not becoming political agitprop, not allowing themselves, letting their grief be put on display so that the Republicans could benefit from that. We could dunk on Joe Biden over this. And that's so gross. It's so disgusting. They were not invited there to be honored. They were invited there to be used and exploited. And they were wise enough to avoid that. And the passage of this House bill, which won't pass the Senate, and even if it did, it'll be vetoed. This is what's so disgusting and gross, because the Republicans completely just caved on everything. They gave Joe Biden a pay raise. Actually, they spent more money than Nancy Pelosi did. Because we can't have a temporary government shutdown. And we could have included some border stuff in that, but we didn't do that. We just passed it along, and then we tried to do a standalone bill so that we can say her name. They don't care about Laken Riley. They don't care about her parents. They don't care about anyone. And that, to me, is the big takeaway. As embarrassing as it is to have a feeble, doddering old fool as the president, the bigger embarrassment are the Republicans that won't actually step up for the American people and for victims of absolute violence, because they included have allowed millions of people to come across who are harming us.
Yeah.
And they can't be bothered.
So apparently the thing that was being held up, the chat is going nuts about it. It's it was a button that said, say her name, Laken Riley. And so MTG gave it to him. And so he took it because he takes things that people hand him to him. And then he was confused. Then he went looking for it to try to figure out what the name was that he was supposed to say. But of course,
I like Life Alert better.
I like Life Alert better too. It's far more fun. We've got like an even deeper serious topic here. I'm going to keep hitting through these videos because I grabbed a bunch. Let me just play this one. Apparently Biden, the answer is always more government. So our schools suck nationally. I had a debate with some lady who had a lot of emotional feeling about it, but no facts. The schools suck. So we need to now pay for more things. It's always more government. We need school programs and summer programs and counseling and tutoring. Here we go.
I want to expand high-quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade.
Why 3rd grade? I don't know. Like my
3rd grade?
Yeah, my 6-year-old is reading. She reads to her children, or her kid sister and her kid brother. Like at night, she picks up the book, reads out of like a kid's Bible, reads stories. She asks me for words that she can't figure out. She's 6. I don't think she's exceptional actually at that level. There's a lot of 6-year-olds that can read.
I agree with my 6-year-old.
I think she's exceptional. Let me just say this. I think my kid is exceptional about a lot of things, but I don't think that she's unique in the world that she can read at 6.
And I read with my 6-year-old son every single day. He has homework because that's what school's supposed to do. They're supposed to read during the day and have it reinforced at night at home. Mm-hmm. I do that because that's what you do in your own life, not because I need a government program to do it. That? And you know what would have really helped people not have learning loss and now be in a situation where they are trying to learn to read by 3rd grade when they're 8 or 9 years old.
Dude, so
how about not shutting down the schools for years?
It's been going on for so long, though, Steve.
Maoist communist revolution.
I did tutoring when I was in high school. It was part of the required outreach we did. I went to a very good school, and we had a lot of people of a lot of privilege. And so one of the things, and it was a Catholic school, so we did outreach. We went out and I taught at the Sequoia Learning Center in Dallas, Texas. It was called a learning center because I think school is actually for people who actually are learning. So a learning center is some lower version of a school. There may actually be a real rule for that, but whatever. It was called the learning center, and it was terrible. I had 6th grade kids. At 6th grade, I was reading Christian allegory, and we were doing analysis of Lord of the Rings and how it reflected on like J.R.R. Tolkien's biblical worldview. Using classic sort of devices that have happened in British literature for hundreds of years, going back to like Spencer's Fairy Queen and before. That's what we were doing in 6th grade. This kid was sounding out Cat in the Hat. I had people that I tutored for an hour or 2 hours a week, whatever it was. They were in 5th and 6th grade and they were unable to read that. Meanwhile, I'm reading, British literature, having discussions about it with my peers. My school was exceptional. I don't think those kids were exceptional. I think they were actually closer to the standard, at least in certain schools. That's why we find out that people are not performing at grade level. Anyway, again, it's always how much can we get the government involved in this? I don't want to belabor this. What I wanted to show you that was a clip that was a dunk because Mike Johnson didn't stand up to clap for giving tutoring and having third graders read. That was, what is that fat, bald potato guy? Brian Stelter. He said, I can't believe that they don't do this. And so he was complimenting Kamala Harris. I've got Kamala Harris here. This is about the strength of our democracy. Everybody, it's super important right now that if you are on the edge of teetering below a like normal IQ level, that you don't listen to this because this will make you too dumb to drive. So if you have academic issues, don't listen to our vice president talk. I got two of them back to back. Ready? Here we go.
Because when we think about the strength of our democracy, you know, I think that there's a duality to the nature of democracy. When it's intact, oh, it's so strong in terms of what it does to uphold and protect individual rights and freedoms. So strong in its nature. And it is very fragile. It will only be as strong as our willingness to fight for it. Because when we think about the strength...
Can you tell me what she just said, please?
I have no idea what she just said. I was just reminded the like wine drinking View watcher. Like that's the same thing I talked about.
They're like, did you hear she said duality?
Is she drunk or high or
someone asked if she takes shots
both?
before she does speaking. She might. She might take shots.
The downers that they try to give to Biden after he's had enough uppers. Maybe there was confusion in the dosage.
That's the takedown. She grabbed the takedown cups and just downed them. Listen, you're probably confused because you haven't realized how much time has passed since the last time you've heard from Kamala.
The governor and I, and we were all doing a tour of the library here and talking about the significance of the passage of time. Right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs. And there is such great significance to the passage of time when we think about a day in the life of our children.
Four times. Look, like you've been there with me when you're talking and you've got the perfect metaphor where you just kind of, you're the X-Men.
Tell me about my perfect metaphors. You go.
Yeah. It's the Magneto reference where we are asked questions live on TV, and it could be something like where there's millions of people watching and you just have trust in yourself that you know what you're talking about and have your faith, and you're able to assemble this road and walk along it like Magneto does with the metal, and it just kind of falls behind you. And Kamala Harris doesn't have that ability at all. She just repeats.
She just thinks she does.
4 times in 30 seconds. Nobody's ever said to her, Madam Vice President or Senator or Attorney General before that, that line doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. She's never been questioned on that. She really thinks that is an impactful, significant thing. It's like
you can tell
people that are just
on her face,
high as a kite, and having their moments where they're listening to
dude, she's selling it with that smile and the cackle. Like she thinks and why wouldn't she think that? She's been elected to offices over and over again,
undefeated, with
like zero competence whatsoever. One of the dumbest people, like Tack Penis in our chat just said she went full potato. Potatoes can power a light bulb. I don't think she could. I think that's an insult to potatoes.
Bread lightly.
No, yeah. There's zero wattage coming out of there. It's actually an energy drain. We're all dumber having watched that. May God have mercy on our souls, right? Like that's the kind of
Billy Madison.
Somebody needed that response to her, probably in high school, and then just say, look, there are people in this world that are incredibly gifted and they have so much to offer. You're not one of them. You should definitely try to find them, get behind them, and then just do what they do, but stay out of their way. That would be better for you. Nope, she's the vice president of the United States.
A heartbeat away, man. A heartbeat away, which is looking increasingly likely that she might be called in. They might be tapping her shoulder. Come on in. We need you in relief.
Okay. I'm going to get into something that's really, really ugly. And this is why I actually named this whole show. So we got a pretty good crowd watching on the live version. If you guys are not watching right now, and if you've not done the like thing, make sure you've hit the like on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Very appreciative. This is the meat and potato. Look, we can clown on these idiots that are running our government all day long. That's not the real quote unquote threat to democracy. It's not the thing that scares me or keeps me up late at night. This is what keeps me up late at night. This just came forward. There's a clip from Jim Jordan we'll play in a minute. Okay, there's an office out there called DSAC. And Steve Friend and I have been kind of amused that people are suddenly being aware of it. It's called the Domestic Security Alliance Council. And I've tuned you guys into a couple of things. When people talk about novel anything, you need to be cautious. The biggest, scariest thing to me, and I couldn't really put my finger on why, and it clicked for me yesterday as I walked around. Steve, there's a thing that's known as a public-private partnership. What you just saw was the DSAC login portal. It is an association of the FBI. I've got a couple little clips here of, here's the main page. Okay, so folks are seeing a cutaway here. This is the main page. You can go to see their website. They'll tell you this is all publicly available information. I'm not giving you anything secret, except I'm going to give you a reflection on it that you probably don't already have. This is probably news to you. The Domestic Security Alliance Council, which is DSAC, DSAC.gov, is a group that facilitates partnerships. And they recently came into more scrutiny. Jim Jordan's committee had a whole discussion on it. Jordan Peterson was there talking about it. This is another thing that some of you may have seen. This is something that came out of a Twitter thread I saw yesterday, but I've seen all these highlights. We heard about the Office of Private Sector Engagement, the Office of the Private Sector out of the FBI. These are the highlights that people were getting freaked out about because people buying Bibles or going and shopping at Bass Pro Shops. Here's a couple little highlights here saying anybody that had possibly had negative opinions about the government's push and exercise of power, influence, or initiative, including firearm legislation, easing of immigration restrictions, the use of public land, or if they had discontent about renewed measures to mitigate and spread COVID, the vaccines, the efficacy of vaccines. There's talk about homegrown violent extremism, which is actually people that are U.S. based but are interested in foreign ideology. So they're miscategorizing this. But the lone actor, the sort of agave thing that Steve and I have been bringing to you, all of this stuff, and this is, by the way, George Hill's major disclosure, that banks were voluntarily giving information to the FBI. This private-public engagement, I think, is the scariest thing in America, and most people don't know why. Tell people what the Office of Private Sector is from your understanding from inside the FBI, and I'm going to probably add some really dark shade to it.
There's the right reason and the real reason. The right reason is that there are private entities out there that might have information that is pertinent to what the FBI has going on that could aid and assist in investigations lawfully. He established these relationships with them because, hey, you run a gun store, we're gonna set up a tripwire with you. If you see somebody coming in that, you're fairly confident that he might be doing some straw purchases, I'd really like to know about that. And that's the right reason. The real reason is that essentially the government is creating these quasi-deputizations of private entities so that they can circumvent civil liberties and constitutional protections. Because if you have this relationship, hey, look, man, I don't want to go through getting a search warrant. I'm just going to get it. Just give me that information. And then the most nefarious self-profiting aspect to it is, hey, if you give me that now, we could maybe help you and your business out. And then later on, you can hire me. And that will go well for all of us.
Which is how you end up with people at Twitter and all the different intelligence agency folks that have absconded and gone into the information industrial complex, that sort of game. I'm going to show you guys the thumbnail for today's show, and then I'm going to tell you why. There's Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin. We're both on the show, so that's good. There's Chris Wray, who's in charge of the FBI, and there's Benito Mussolini, who is commonly misunderstood. I think people don't really understand how damaging what he was involved in was, but fascism comes out of Italy. They always sort of equate it with Hitler. He was doing something different. And I'm going to read something here that connected. I've always known this stuff in my brain. I didn't actually have it written down where I was like, oh, I knew that this connection existed, what fascism really was. And specifically its interaction, government to private entity. I'm going to read you some stuff from DSAC real quick. All right. So I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I'm just going to literally share what my reflection is here. what you're seeing is from their About Me section. There's nothing hidden about this. This is literally stuff they brag about. The Domestic Security Alliance Council is a public-private partnership offered by the FBI from the Office of Private Sector and Homeland Security's Office of Intelligence and Analysis. Number one, you now have the FBI's sort of nepotism game meeting up with DHS doing analysis and intelligence. And they enhance communication and provide timely and effective exchange of security and intelligence information between the federal government and the private sector. That is just what Steve just said. The real reason is can we avoid a search warrant? Can we just get this information? We're going to get it anyway. And they do. The partnerships, DSAC facilitates strong, enduring relationships in the private sector across the FBI's enterprise with DHS and fusion centers, which are also local and state law enforcement. So now we've got all of them involved, in addition to other federal entities that are trying to detect, prevent, and deter criminal acts. Well, we don't have a problem with detection, but prevention and deterring means pre-crime, and that's not American. That's actually really incredibly dangerous. The program strategically designates government and private sector points of contact to maintain and maximize collaboration. This is a lot of buzzwords and bullshit. Together, these representatives of DSAC effectively align, here it is, local, state, and national security priorities. The mission is to promote and strengthen U.S. national and economic security through these public-private, these strong government and private sector partnerships. I'm not done yet, so just bear with me. Stick around. There's a lot of words on this. Here's the leadership. Steve will reflect on this in a minute. We have a blonde lady who's the section chief and the acting assistant director of the private sector from the intelligence branch of the FBI. Wonderful. She looks highly competent. I don't know very many women in the FBI at that level that were competent. Then you have Tammy Hutchinson. She's the executive working group, DHS chair, black female. You guys are not seeing it, but that's what's going on there. Then you have another lady, and she's from the MGM Resorts, and she's the private sector co-chair. She's the vice president of investigations and intelligence. These people are not someone that I've done a lot of research on yet, but I'm going to because I want to know what they're all about. In any case, interesting that we have 3 women that are sort of in charge of this whole situation. All right, lastly, I want to bring up what scares the crap out of me because this is the information that has been sitting in my head for quite a while. And I don't know where I had this. The economics of fascism. Historians and scholars disagree on the question of whether there's specifically a fascist type of economic policy. Okay. David Baker makes some argument, blah, 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 blah. There's a couple little pieces about here that's not 100% understood whether or not this is all like widely agreed upon. These are the parts that stuck with me because I do remember hearing this and I do remember these discussions being had. Fascist movements tend not to have fixed economic principles, but rather a general desire that the economy should help build a strong nation. That in and of itself is not scary. But what I just told you a second ago should be, because that's the same goal that DSAC has. In general, fascist governments exercise control over private property, but they do not nationalize it. I'm going to say it again. They exercise control over private property, but they do not nationalize it. They're not communists. They simply lean into it. And they simply have public-private partnerships that allow you as a business to know, man, wouldn't it be better if you just got in line with what we do? Business leaders support the government's political and military goals, and in exchange, the government pursued economic policies that maximize the profit of business allies. Fascists aim at promoting what they consider national interests of their country. They support the right to own private property and the profit motive because they believe that they're beneficial to economic development, but they also sought to eliminate the autonomy at the large scale capitalism from the state. So all of this is to say, fascism always, in my mind, has been associated with not nationalizing the resources, but leaning on it and making sure that they're all going to play ball with what the larger government is going to do. And DSAC is that. We got this little clip from Jim Jordan. I know there's more to it, but let's play this little clip from Jim Jordan so people can get a taste of what we're talking about. This is going to be 2 individuals reflecting on it with Jim Jordan, one of them being Jordan Peterson.
Tonight, do you need a gun registration list if government can just go ask the banks every time some customer purchases a gun?
Well, the banks won't know if you purchased a gun per se, but your bank records can be a pretty good, though not perfect, registration for almost anything.
But my point is it's almost like a backdoor registration, right?
Yes, one of the challenges is that highly sensitive information can be accessed through financial records that otherwise is constitutionally protected.
Yeah. Dr. Peterson, do you think they're just going to stop with conservatives? I mean, my history tells us that the cancel culture mob, the surveillance state, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't just, they never are satisfied with just certain people. It always expands. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago, Senator Feinstein, iconic Democrat senator from the great state of California, the folks in San Francisco renamed the Dianne Feinstein Elementary School. They took her name off the school because they found that she said something like 40 years ago that the cancel culture mob didn't like. So even a liberal Democrat senator wasn't good enough for the mob. They came after her too. And this is the thing that scares me. We've invited probably more Democrat witnesses in front of this committee than any other committee, because we invite Democrats to come in and say, we respect the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, respect the Constitution. My concern is it never just stops with certain people. It always goes further. Do you agree with that?
Well, the reason I prefaced my remarks with an insistence on nonpartisanship is because the danger posed by this increasing ability of governments and large corporations to collude threatens everyone's freedom equally. And it could well be that at the moment, and this is, I think, the case the Republicans here are trying to make, is that the people who are in the sights of that collusion tend to have more conservative leanings, but that will shift in a moment whenever the political tides shift. And we're concentrating in this hearing a fair bit on the specific events of January 6th, a very partisan issue that produces a very intense partisan divide, but we're not addressing the fundamental issue here directly, which is that our new technology enables a mode of surveillance that's so intense and all-pervading that no one will escape its purview regardless of their political views.
That's the real issue here, is that nobody is safe from it because nobody can escape it. Here's the thing I wanted to show you about membership, because people in the chat are pretty astute, and they actually mentioned InfraGard, which is another program that does the exact sort of thing, but with smaller companies. DSAC specifically is a corporate membership program. The member companies have to be for-profit, and they must generate a minimum of $1 billion in annual revenue, have a chief security officer and a security team based in the United States that show a nexus to U.S. national and economic security. They're specifically the high capable and the bigger, higher profile players in this game. It started in 2005. This goes all the way back to GW. This is Patriot Act type stuff. This is that outreach that started happening during that time. It was comprised of CSOs, that's chief security officers from a number of the largest corporations, when they began meeting with FBI officials and members of the State Department at that point. So somebody mentioned the Blob. I know that's what Mike Benz likes to talk about. The Overseas Security Advisory Council, which was at FBI headquarters. And these committees had the objective of creating a domestic security organization modeled after OSAC, which is the overseas version, to connect these private sector security experts and serve as a vehicle for quote unquote exchanging information with the FBI. There's more to it. You guys can see it on the screen. They have many members. There's a lot of money. The scary thing is this, is the question people ask is, does it go both ways? Yeah, it does. The FBI makes requests. That's the one way. And then these private sector people jump in line. It's a carrot and stick situation. And then the other piece is they'll oftentimes say, wouldn't it be cool for you to have like your own FBI login? You've got a portal. You've got a DSAC portal. It's got the FBI's logo on it. You know how cool it is that you can go in there and give us the free information that we want that we should otherwise have to go to court and get?
Sounds a lot like Operation Bronze Griffin that exists over at Facebook, Meta, the login that they give your private messages back to the FBI without a search warrant, subpoena, or your consent, because they're just doing their bidding as they're a private actor. They're just an informant. So I was actually reminded of two people that are friends of yours and mine, where you're going through that. One is Amy Nelson, and the other one is Alpha Warrior. And the reason I was because Amy Nelson's entire family was put through the ringer by the FBI at the behest of Amazon. And this is a multi-billion-dollar, the largest company in the world that has a relationship with the FBI. And like you said, it goes both ways. The FBI says, hey, you want to get rich? We'll help you guys out. We will expect the elected officials to put certain regulations to put your competitors out of business. You'll be able to withstand that. And then you'll give us information when we need it and make sure that our people get hired on and security roles later on. And then when you need to get out of a contract, you can just lobby us over at DOJ and we'll put an innocent man in our crosshairs and charge him with the crime that he didn't commit.
That's
it's
exactly
a great symbiotic relationship we got there. And then as far as Alpha goes, the relationships extend beyond just private partnerships, extends to local law enforcement. So the feds couldn't go after Alpha because he didn't actually go to January 6th. So we don't like him, though. So let's get the locals to drum up a local charge because we don't like him. And that's what they did. And it's like the fusion centers that you were talking about. They've co-opted local agencies and law enforcement to do their bidding, very much the way that they've tried to co-opt and develop relationships with private entities and deputize them to do their bidding.
I'm going to riff a little bit more on fascism in a second. I know you've got another commitment, so I want to say thanks for joining me today. Let people know about the Patriot TV and what you got coming up, and I'll let you plug it all out.
All right, Patriot TV today, 3 Eastern, patriot.tv. The show is True Blue with Steve Friend. I've actually got Alpha coming on today to talk to me about his experience, and that is every Monday through Friday at 3 Eastern. And then the American Radicals podcast, as always, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, noon on Rumble. Doing the book study with Garrett tomorrow on Saturday. Animal Farm, chapter 7, chapter 8. So join us there, and we will get at it. So thanks for everything today.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you being here. We'll see you soon.
You got it.
All right. So, folks, I want to get a little bit deeper into this thing. There's a nasty clip that just went out of John Brennan. And as you guys know, he represents probably the worst of what goes on in the intelligence community. Here's him saying that they're going to basically deny Donald Trump as the candidate based on all the principles that we have and all the way that we do this sort of business. They're going to break precedent, and they're not going to give him information when he gets briefed up like every candidate has previously. This is what fascism looks like, guys. And it's hard to imagine that. I haven't been able to put my finger on why I kept thinking that word was appropriate. And it's the public-private partnership, and it's these folks that have oversized influence that continue to exist, even though they're no longer in a government role. Even as private industry, they're still out there leaning on your businesses and the large players. And those people, they change the way that we see information. They change the way that we're able to purchase products. They can track almost everything we do. The private industry has so much more capabilities than our intelligence. That's why they have to have partnerships with them. All these data companies know far more about you than you're going to be even remotely comfortable with. I've got some, what do you call them? I've had some NDAs signed and stepped into the NSA level SCIF, which is a level higher than what the FBI has for their SCIFs. It's on the second floor of the Washington field office. And when I went in there and you get some of the briefings on the capabilities that are not our intelligence, but our actual tech companies have and what they can find out about you. And I have no idea how well protected that stuff is. So I'm not going to talk about any of it, but it scares the crap out of me because I can't unknow that stuff. And some of you know what I'm talking about. And some of the stuff is probably public sector. I'm just not going to run afoul of that and have the FBI, who may or may not be watching this stuff still, give me some reason to come after it. Let's see this John Brennan piece. I just want you guys to see him. He's utterly unsympathetic. And the second thing is this host, and I can't remember what her name is, but she up talks. I don't understand where women are learning how to talk like this. Women, if you talk like this, just stop. It's terrible. It's almost as bad as Katie Britt.
I have to start with the news today with you, Director Brennan, that some version of our intelligence analysis will, there's a plan for Trump to start getting that while he's under criminal prosecution for mishandling classified documents. Will you explain what this is and what you think is likely to happen?
Yeah, Nicole, it's somewhat surreal that an individual who is under indictment for mishandling classified information is going to be getting classified intelligence briefings. But this traditionally is provided to the candidates for president by the sitting president. And so therefore, I think it makes sense for the Biden administration to offer that to Donald Trump. Now, I'm pretty certain that my former intelligence colleagues will provide briefings that are not going to do any type of damage to sources and methods in terms of providing information to Donald Trump that he could misuse. But they will provide analytic overviews and briefings about some of the world's hotspots. letting Donald Trump know what the assessments are at this point. So I think it's going to be analysis that will be devoid of the sources and methods, the sensitive things that we are most concerned about, the types of things that were in all those documents that he had in the bathroom and other areas in Mar-a-Lago. But I do think it makes sense. Now, it's a question about whether or not Donald Trump will accept the briefings. And I'm sure that if he does accept them, he probably will disparage them, as he has disparaged U.S. intelligence officers as well as U.S. intelligence itself for so long, over so many years.
That's a former CIA director telling you that he thinks that a former president of the United States who had not just a higher clearance, but the clearance, the president of the United States can unilaterally decide, classified or not, has access to all things. There is no requirement. Like, all things are need to know. He needs to know all of them if he wants. These are the people that are trying to keep, quote unquote, democracy safe from the actual mechanisms and the choices of the people. That's why Hakeim Jeffries wants to smoke MAGA people, all this stuff. Now, here's the only upside to it, because I'm not going to leave you guys on a down note going into the weekend. Obviously not. That's not how we do it. The people from which the government gets its authority to operate, the consent of the governed, it's not there. Many of you know that. That's that feeling. That's the cold Civil War. And they're starting to react in ways that are no longer polite and laying down. So here's Letitia James. She's the Attorney General of New York, which is terrible. She's terrible. People are letting her know you're terrible. And she can't get even a warm sort of reception at a place that historically would allow Democrats to be the warm reception. It's a union hall, or they're in a church, but it's a union type meeting. And organized labor. The Democrats abandoned them. That's what they know. That's what's so scary. So here's a couple of pieces. We're going to play you this clip of Letitia James getting booed off the stage, essentially, and getting shouted down with cheers of Trump. I've got two of them, so I'll play both. Oh, that's not one of them. It's video 10. Here we go.
Oh, come on. We're in a house of God. First, simmer down. I want to thank Commissioner Kavanaugh and Chief Hodgins for that recognition.
So that's FDNY meeting. They're there to celebrate a black chaplain being named, a black female chaplain. Like, who cares? Honestly, seriously, who cares? Chaplain, not relevant. They're shouting Trump, 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 which is also funny. But the thing for me is that she says simmer down, and she talks to them just like Katie Britt. It's just across the board. That's what a uniparty looks like when everybody is on the same game where they treat you like a toddler. She's talking to men that are real men, that are firefighters in New York. It's absurd. Here's another little thing. She couldn't get through her speech.
Today we are making history, swearing in our first African-American woman chaplain of FDN.
Yep. Another person that could join. She's actually probably more competent than Kamala Harris. At least she doesn't sound nearly as ridiculous. She doesn't say the dumb sort of word salads, but doesn't belong up there, and certainly misunderstood what that audience looked like. She didn't know who she was talking to. That's the number one thing you do when you have a speech. You got to know your audience. And she didn't do it. She told a bunch of guys yelling Trump, Trump, Trump to simmer down. We'll see how well that goes. We're coming into a time where we're going to get a chance to actually recognize that in real time. So I'm looking forward to it. I want to give you guys a quick taste. Anybody that is buying from the merch store right now, if you guys are going to the-suspendables.com and using our promo code Kyle to save 10% on t-shirts or on pins or whatever. By the way, if you ordered 2 pins, you're going to get 3. Because it's 3 for the price of 2. That's how it works. If you are going to the merch store, just be really patient. Garrett had something like 750 orders come in a period of 5 or 6 days. And we've had 750 orders or so in the entire time that we've been talking about the merch store. You can go to the-suspendables.com. It's again, the-suspendables.com. That's going to be the O'Boyle family sweatshop, as we like to talk about it. That's Garrett and family putting out these products. But like, let's take I'll have a lot of grace with them, please. And if you guys are sending things like, where's my order? And like, what's going on? Like, he might just cancel it because he's on the edge. He's so tired. He's working till like 2 in the a.m., just like pressing out shirts and stuff. And we're announcing it. There's a brand new KYLE SERAPHIN Show t-shirt, which, because he's a glutton for punishment, he actually created another design. And that means he's got that stuff coming in. The dyes and stuff and the inks are on order. So if you guys ordered a TKSS, as it is called, t-shirt, check it out. It's very cool looking. Like, Garrett made a nice logo for it. Again, all the money benefits the O'Boyle family. It doesn't go to us at all. I'm more than happy for him to use my name to do all that stuff. But if you guys want to go to the merch store, you can totally do that. And then let's wrap up with not just Letitia James. That's not your moment of zen. That's not your palate cleanser for the weekend. How about this? I'm like, Russell Brand keeps getting popped into my feed. The most hedonistic man 10 years ago in the world is now talking about doing the rosary and what if suffering for a purpose and a Christ-focused life is important. What an amazing turnaround. 2024 is wild, and it's not all bad. I'm showing you some of the bad. Here's some of the great. This is fantastic. I absolutely love this stuff. So we'll play this and then we'll do a review and we'll get out of here.
The central image of Christianity is an image of suffering. In the world of positive thinking, well-being, it's a lot of self on the shelf, isn't it? There's a lot of encouragement to continually be working on your state, I find, in order to make yourself happy and content. Isn't one of the great values of religion that we learn to use suffering to grow? You know, what atheists will say is, no, that's just so that, you know, you're offered pie in the sky, treasures in heaven, so that you become more pliable here on earth. That's not the type of Christianity that excites me. The type of Christianity that excites me is the idea that we can, through surrendering ourselves, become conduits for a great power. And can you tell me in the chat, it seems to me that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was pretty radical when it came to confrontations with power, a willingness to say things that are challenging. If indeed we are emulating Christ, is it somehow inherently political? Is this the time for Christ to be summoned to earth? Not that you can summons God, I recognize that, but for us to summons at least the Christ within ourselves, to embrace our suffering as an opportunity to grow, be willing to give up self-satisfaction in order to generate change. All the time in our content, we're talking about change and politics and corruption and hypocrisy. Is this the perfect example that we've been looking for? Has it been right in front of our faces? Tell me.
It has been. It's been right in front of our faces. And by the way, Joe Rogan is on his way there too, I think. I don't know why. I just feel like Joe Rogan is going to go like, bing. I know he was raised in a Catholic household. So it's coming back. A lot of these folks are going to start seeing, yeah, when things suck, you turn to God. That's what everybody does. They've done it for their whole lives. And I don't hate this guy doing it. Is he a perfect messenger? Of course not. Of course not. But I'm willing to take somebody who's got a big microphone that's saying the right things and being, sort of inspired and transforming himself. And he's doing it in an image that actually is really, really positive. I think it's awesome. I want to give you guys a little taste of what's coming up this next week. I'm going to be out. I'm going to be in Idaho and Montana. I'm going to be moving around in that northern, northwest, sort of Pacific Northwest area. I don't know if you call it like Western Rockies, something like that. And we've got some awesome stuff coming on. Okay, so I've got the author of the Dan Bongino Show Survival Guide. His name is Jim Verdi. He's going to be on for Monday. We've got a great taped interview. We just did it yesterday. I think you guys are going to totally appreciate it. A little bit of insight on the backside of what goes on in the Dan Bongino Show, story of that name that you hear all the time, but you guys don't know his voice. You're going to get to see him and what he has to say and how he wrote this book, and you guys can pre-order the book. That's out there in the world. We've also got conversations with Tracy Beans, a really good one talking about some of the COVID stuff, sort of a reflection on what had happened and some of the new information that has come out about the vax safe. So that's going to be a really good conversation. I've got one with Ron Coleman. He's a Jewish attorney. We talk about sort of Judaism in America and where this anti-Semitism is going, but also he's a really neat guy because he's a political activist. He's been around for a very long time, and he is he's one of the attorneys at the Dillon Law Firm. That's of the Harmy Dillon Law Firm. We got Derek Maltz, who was a former special agent, and he was a senior level guy with the DEA. He ran their special operations division, talking about the fentanyl crisis and the stuff coming over the border and the connections to the Chinese government with our cartels that are down in Mexico. Really, really intense. You're going to get yelled at for a little bit by a New Yorker, but I think you guys will come away with a ton more knowledge. Definitely definitely, even though I'm not here, we'll run the shows like they're live. They'll be playing on here. You guys are going to have some very interesting things to learn. They're all long. They're all at least like, over an hour, like 90 minutes or so. So tons of stuff. Download them all. Make sure that if you're listening on the audio show that you've actually marked yourself down to get those so you can get them on your audio format if you're driving around, if you want something for your commutes and so on. And yeah, you guys will like it. It's going to be good. And when I say Ron Coleman, I don't mean Ronnie Coleman, the bodybuilder. You guys will see. Although they've never been in the same room together, as far as we know. They might be the same guy, but probably not. So we'll check you guys out. Like I said, I will be available off and on social media and so on. I'm going to be giving a speech on Saturday in Lewiston, Idaho, to the Nez Perce GOP. We're going to do a Lincoln Day dinner. Some of you guys have actually already bought tickets. I saw that. People have sent me. Somebody bought a table after I did a Twitter space the other day. So thanks so much for supporting them, supporting me and the KYLE Seraphin Show. We appreciate it. I really do. I'm so grateful for all of you guys and all your support that continues on. Join us on Monday to get started off right away with the Dan Bongino Show Survival Guide and the new author, his senior producer on the radio show, Jim Verdi. We'll see you guys after the weekend. God bless. Be good.
Thanks for listening to the KYLE Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/KYLE Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at KYLE Seraphin.